So 2018 has been a very hot market for pot stocks, making tons of millionaires in the stock market, and 2019 may be more of the same. Some big things happened in 2018, mainly Canada legalizing it, as well as some US states legalizing it, and we may see a lot more of this in 2019, as well as other big things which we will discuss in this video today. So what we're actually talking about today is CNBC's Jim Cramer's 5 thoughts on the marijuana industry and what he thinks is going to happen with this industry in 2019. So the first thing is more legalization. So like we discussed, Canada legalized weed in 2018 legally, federally. So that means all provinces in Canada now legally can sell weed. And as we chug along 2019, we're going to see more US states legalize weed as well. Usually what happens is there's a bill that's proposed, it goes to a voting stage, and more often than not, this vote does get passed. Now you can see from this map here that pretty much what the West Coast has done is legalize it across the board. The East Coast is starting to as well. But the states in the center of the country are still debating this, are still kind of, unsure if they want to legalize it or not. But the one thing you can take away from this graphic is that very few states have it as illegal. And by the end of 2019, it should be even less states that have it as a purely illegal substance. Now, even though certain states have legalized it, like we saw along the West Coast, federally in the United States, weed is still illegal. However, the Attorney General nominee has signed that he won't go after cannabis companies in compliance with state laws, so this should be a non-issue for these stocks and for this industry in 2019. Now, of course, as more states legalize this in 2019 and as more countries legalize this in 2019, they're going to be looking at the top dogs in the space, like the Canopy Growth, Aurora, Aphria, and they're going to be looking at these companies to supply them. So there's going to be huge potential for these companies as we enter 2019. Now, the second point to discuss is CBD, which is cannabis oil. So CBD's popularity, according to Cramer, will explode in 2019, opening up more possibilities for use for consumers. And it seems like companies like Canopy Growth do recognize this. They did put out statements in 2018 recognizing this, and it seems like this will be a brand new segment of the industry that will explode in 2019. With CBD, you're able to put it in food, put it in beverages, put it in skincare, and have great results with it. And like I said, in 2018, Canopy did officially announce that they're entering this space, so they're trying to be the dominant player for this as well. So the third point is more deals. So in 2018, we saw some large companies out there go in and take stakes in these marijuana companies. If you recall, Constellation Brands is one of the first ones to actually do this. They have a massive stake in Canopy Growth, and eventually it's predicted that they will actually have a controlling stake in the company. And then of course you have Altria, which made a huge deal with Cronos Group. And in 2019, Cramer expects a lot more of these large companies to come into this space and start funding these smaller marijuana companies, giving them a lot more capital to work with, giving them a lot more money to invest in, and this should fuel the next growth cycle in this industry. A few years ago, there was a lot of fear that a lot of these pot stocks would go bankrupt, they might not be able to survive, their financials looked horrible, but now that we know that a lot of these big dogs with a lot of money behind them will be supporting these companies, those fears have pretty much been eliminated. If we do see one of these large marijuana companies struggle and get into bankruptcy state, more likely than not, we will see one of these large companies, Constellation Brands, Altria, some other company in this space, come in and swoop up the whole company at a massive discount. So a good exercise for this would be to kind of research a lot more of these cigarette and alcohol type companies, see which ones you think would potentially enter this space in 2019, and kind of follow them throughout 2019, because this could potentially be a big opportunity for you to enter the space indirectly through one of these larger companies that typically pay out massive dividends. Now the fourth thing is more brands. So Cramer's looking to 2019 where these pod stocks become more household names or household brands. 2018 was pretty much a year full of struggles with legalization. We don't know if it was going to pass. It kept getting pushed back. It was supposed to be in July initially, then finally it legalized in October in Canada. So there was a lot of fear as to would this happen, would this not happen. Either way, that has passed now and that's behind us. So there's a lot more upside now in these stocks in 2019. So what he thinks is going to happen this year is that a lot of these companies are going to push a lot more money, pump a lot more money into their marketing efforts, try to become more household names, try to become a brand that people are like, that's the one I want to get. And if they are able to do this, they're going to be able to double, triple, even quadruple their revenue over the next few years. He even thinks that things like celebrity endorsements and, in my opinion, even social media influencers will have a major role to bring this industry to the next level. And I don't think that's really far-fetched, even though it will be expensive for these companies to do so. It should pay off in the long run, just like any other product has in the past, which has celebrity endorsements or social media endorsements. Now, the fifth point is more credit. Now, this point is kind of interesting, which he listed, because it kind of contradicts some of the other points that he's made throughout this video. And that's because this point is more in relation to alternatives to cannabis. So Kramer thinks that in 2019, a lot of these companies, pharma companies specifically, that mimic cannabis effects in their drugs will most likely explode and take off in 2019. Now, this of course contradicts everything that he said, because if you really believe that the cannabis industry was going to explode, then there should be a pretty large moat around it, typically, if you want to invest in a company like that. And from what he's explaining in this point, it doesn't seem like there is, because these pharma companies are able to mimic the effects and provide alternatives to consumers where they don't have to go out and purchase marijuana directly. Now, my opinion on this is that yes, it probably is possible for these companies to mimic these effects to a certain point, but nothing will really beat the original, and I think a lot of people will still be going for actual marijuana, actual weed, instead of drugs to substitute that. One of the big things about weed is that it's natural, it's from a plant. So when you look at pharma companies and look at drugs, look at pills, that's something that a lot of people are going to steer away from, because you don't really know what else is being put into that in terms of chemicals and all these byproducts that they put in. But he does make a valid point here when it comes to potency and dosage. So because marijuana is a plant, its potency really varies depending on the climate, depending on the plant, depending on the environment, depending on a lot of things that surround the plant as it's growing. So because canopy is a plant, there tends to be a lot of variability when it comes to THC and CBD levels in each batch. But these pharma companies don't have that problem, because it's artificially made and they can control the level of THC and CBD and all this other stuff that they want to offer their customers, and have kind of high potency levels, low potency, and have a lot more control over the whole product. But in my opinion, I think as technology progresses, developing more consistently potent marijuana plants will be more realistic. And I think that over the long term, this is going to be more of a non-issue for the industry. So what he concluded with saying here is that he believes that there's going to be two companies that are going to dominate the space, most likely in 2019. These two companies are Canopy and Cronos. And what's interesting is that he didn't really make any mention to some of the other big players, Aphria, Aurora, Tilray. None of these stocks were mentioned in this article. So it is kind of interesting to see where momentum could possibly be shifting here when it comes to the media and the news. And if you're a momentum trader, you might have already recognized this and started taking advantage of this. Either way, guys, hope this video was interesting. It's kind of different from my usual videos. If you did enjoy it, drop a huge like down below. Let me know if you like this and I can create more videos on this topic. But either way, don't forget to invest positively, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.